Alright, top 100 decks from the KC Cup. We went ahead and rounded up all the different decks that managed to make it into the top 100, as well as how many of each did. A few of the decks had, or a few players rather, had multiple decks that they brought, so we went ahead and counted a couple of those in here as well. Also, only about 75% of the players have reported their decks to DLM, so about 1/4 of the deck lists from the top 100 are missing. But this is what we have access to, so we'll go ahead and go over them. As you can see, Phantom Knights absolutely dominated this event, with 1/4 of all the players in the top 100 having that deck. Phantom Knights are turning out to be really good in a best of one format. Usually in a tournament setting where you have best of three, you can side deck into things like Necro Valley, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, and those are, among other options to help take care of them, DD Crow, other things. But in the KC Cup, where it's best of one, you don't have access to that side deck, Phantom Knights really dominate. They have a great, monster that can destroy cards, give them crazy card advantage, go for, those OTKs. They can survive with their trap cards coming out of the graveyard. So they have some crazy tools at their disposal, and it really shown here. Really shined in the KC Cup in this best of one format. As a result, Ritual Beast took the second spot with 10 spots at the top 100. Was not expecting to see Ritual Beast do this well, but it kind of makes sense when you think about it, though. Ritual Beasts have a great matchup against Phantom Knights because they're kind of immune a little bit to the destruction effects in a lot of ways. They have the Petalfin monster, which you can't destroy. Also, Winda gets effects when you destroy it, so they have some advantage over PK there against their rank 3 boss monster. Also, some of the other decks here in the top also do a lot of destruction effects, and Ritual Beasts do a great job just surviving against them, and have access to a nice back row package, all the different traps they can run at their disposal. So Harpy Ladies took the number 3 spot. Not too much of a surprise here. They have a great matchup against Ritual Beasts, being able to bounce their monsters back to the extra deck or their Windas. Also being able to take out all their back row. Same thing against Abyss Actors. They absolutely destroy that deck as well. So Harpy Ladies had some good matchups here in the top. The top cut that propelled them to be into that number 3 spot here, taking up 9 out of these top decks. But also Abyss Actor taking up 6 spots. Witchcrafter took up 4 spots. Lunalight, kind of surprising to see them here with 3 spots here near the top of all the decks. Hazy Flame, Buster Blader also taking 3. Kind of a little surprised to see Hazy Flame doing as well as it did. We covered this in a spicy deck video. Didn't expect to see this deck to be doing this well at this point here in the KC Cup, but here it is. We'll showcase one of those decks later on. Also a couple spots for Tech Genus, Evil Eye, and Magnet Warrior. Then here are all the one-ofs. Yosenju, Dark Magician got one in there. Melodious, Gaia, Goki, Noble Knight, Cyber Dragon, Fire King, Weather Painter, Blue Eyes, and D-Hero. A little disappointed in D-Hero and Gaia. Kind of expected them to get more than just one in there, even if it was just 2 or 3. But maybe there were a couple others that just didn't report. But nonetheless, so this is what we have so far. So digging in here, number 1 was Abyss Actor. Abyss Actor took the number 1 spot here in the KC Cup. We can see the decks have kind of moved to the versions that don't play Sky Iris. Just finding that they can, by cutting that card, they can run other things like MST and other back row cards that allow them to take out their opponent's MST and slow their opponents down, so they can proceed through with their combos, not worry about their Madonna getting popped by their opponent's cards. But nonetheless, so Abyss Actor has just really proven itself to be the best Pendulum deck right now in the game. Compared to all the other pen decks, they just don't hold, up to what this deck can do. But Abyss Actor, another huge thing that really propelled this deck to take the first place spot, though, was Sealed Tombs. The skill Sealed Tombs is incredible right now. So with Phantom Knights being sort of the best deck of the KC Cup and running around so much, having that to be able to lock your opponent out of that play and then dump continue with your your Abyss Actor combos, or searching with Madonna and putting everything on the board. You can easily just swing through and destroy your opponent, when they can't even play the game for a turn because of Sealed Tombs. They can't do most of their main combos because of it. And there's a few decks right now that Sealed Tombs definitely hurt. So using the skill right now is proven to be one of the better skills in the game. And Abyss Actor can use it more than anyone else just because of how easy it is for them to take away their own life points with Madonna, searching their deck for whatever they need. Yeah, this is just a really nice deck. Good to see that Pendulums are actually having success in Duel Links. I know a lot of people, myself, are kind of concerned that they wouldn't do very well, but here they are, first place in the KC Cup. Second place, though, Ritual Beast. We mentioned there were a lot of these in the top 100, quite a few, and they took the second place and the third place spot here. Look at the main deck's Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. Just shows you how much of a threat Phantom Knights really were in this event, to the point that people were main decking Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. But this is one of the advantages that Ritual Beasts have, right? They can run Sphere Kariba, they can run Book of Moon, Floodgate, they can run Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, Canadia, Drowning. They can run a whole bunch of different a range of back row cards in addition to their monsters, which are immune to destruction effects. So, you know, it proved that to be really good for them this event. Another thing to notice, look in the extra deck, you see the Arc Rebellion Dragon, one of the new cards we got here in that Phantom Knight box. This has proven to be one of the best just sort of generic toolbox rank 4s in the game. Usually people run Malevolent Sin as sort of the first one they choose. Abyss Dweller would be the other one that people would consider, but now Arc Rebellion Dragon has really risen to be in that top tier with them. Whenever you see people and they can only have 1 or 2 or 3 rank 4s in their deck, they go to Malevolent Sin, Arc Rebellion, and Abyss Dweller as the 3 that they're looking towards. So, and Diamond Direwolf is in some cases too, but it's really risen up to be among the top tier of sort of the generic rank 4s in the game. You'll see it in a lot of decks here. This is not the same deck as the last one. This is the 3rd place list. I mentioned the Ritual Beast did really well. I just wanted to showcase just how good they did, taking 2 of the top 3 spots here. Transmigration Prophecy in the main deck here. This is another great card to take care of Phantom Knights, as well as some other things that like their stuff in the graveyard. You can interrupt their combo, shuffle things back into their deck, taking it away from the banish pile, which sometimes decks can take advantage of also. So another tool in their arsenal, and just showcases just how many different you know, cards Ritual Beast can really utilize. Magnet Warriors, now they kind of underperformed a little bit, right? They didn't get as many decks in the top 100, but they did manage to get one here in 4th place in the top 5, so at least kudos on that. Magnet Warriors have been the best deck of the last month or 2 in the game, but here in KC Cup format, in this Best of 1 format, it just did not perform as well, and we may be seeing that some other decks now, as Tower Knights are getting more support and new decks continue to improve, maybe Magnet Warriors' time at the top may be going down a bit. Nonetheless, so this is still a really great deck, one of the top 5 decks of the format, and I think that in the tournament format, this deck may prove to still be doing really well. So, again, even if it didn't get the most spots in the KC Cup, 4th place is not bad, and I expect to see many people using Magnet Warriors going forward still. You also have to wonder, you know, how many people in this event just wanted to play the new deck and wanted to play Phantom Knights too. I wonder if there was just some people who just really were determined to do that also. But not to say that Phantom Knights isn't, you know, one of the top or the top deck of the format, but I would expect to see Magnet Warriors still have success going forward. Alright, next up we have a couple 5th place decks here. So we have a TG deck. Now we had a couple of these in the top 100, a couple different variants too. This is the Flight Control version with all the TG monsters for max consistency, although we did see the Dinosaur version as well in the top 100. So both versions are good and can still get you there, but with this version is just extremely consistent. Your skill pretty much always gives you the ability to, you know, have a combo and play almost every game with his hand, you know, and that's really effective in Duel Links right now, because so many other of the consistency skills have been nerfed a ton, so having access to one with this deck is really helpful. But you with this version of the deck, you are losing access to the Dinosaur package, which is very strong in its own right. So, but still, TG's doing really well. Also, Hazy Flame. Again, I mentioned this. Can't believe True King Hazy Flame has managed to secure as many spots on the top 100 as they did. Not only that, they got a top 5 spot here too. One of the players in top 5 was using this. Yeah, this deck's ability to just go into Rhinoceros so easily, it's proven to be a huge factor for this deck. Rhinoceros is great against a ton of matchups, and this deck's ability to just throw things on the board, survive off the Battling Boxer Veil, is really strong. It's making this deck a more serious contender in a metagame than I initially thought that it would be. Alright, next up, 8th place. This is actually the highest performing Phantom Knight deck that we have reported so far, despite, you know, 1/4 of the decks in the meta being Phantom Knights. 8th place still, though, this deck really performed incredibly well during the KC Cup. You know, I'm kind of surprised to see it did as good as it did, but I'm not surprised to see that it's one of like the top 5 decks in the game though. Phantom Knights are extremely powerful right now, especially in this best of 1 format. Again, with people not being able to side deck in the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, a few people even main decking it, it really showcased just how strong this deck is and was in this tournament. This has sort of become the main, I think, monster lineup for the deck. Most people running 3 Cloak, 3 Hands, 3 Boots, and then 2 of the Kagemusha Knight. And then we see that the spell and trap, it's become pretty standard too. Most people running the 1 of Stretcher Trap Hole, the 1 of Sword. You have the same Phantom strategy skill in all the decks, and then most people are running some combination of Book of Moon and anti-backer cards, MSTs, Cyclones, Lances, whatever combination they run. People also opting to run enemy controller. Seeing enemy controller in quite a few decks today. It's something a lot of people are really moving to just 1 copy TTH, 1 copy of enemy controller in their decks, just to reduce the chances that you open up with that double TTH and you have one that's dead and you can't use. And as a result, I think a lot of people are also moving towards Cosmic Cyclone over MST this format, because there are so many other backer cards cards like the Phantom Knight trap card that you want to banish instead of destroying and sending to the graveyard, because they get the graveyard effects off of it. So a few things just to note about the format and the way that it's shifting here. Also, I think this extra deck's become pretty standard. You could put Zen Mains in here instead of the Nightmare Shark, but I think Shark is best, at least my personal opinion. Next up is a 9th place player. He used a few different decks throughout this event. Wanted to showcase, he had a Witchcrafter deck, actually. One of the, I think this is the highest, this was the highest performing Witchcrafter deck of the event. Surprised that we had several there in the top 100. Also, we again see the True King Hazy Flame deck making an appearance. Although here, he's actually using Miscellaneous Source and Dinosaurs to help get out his fire monsters that way, including a tuner monster, so he has access to a larger synchro package here, able to go into Black Rose, the Shiranui monster. That's a really cool idea to go along with this deck. I really like that option. I have to try it out. Also running the Triff in the deck as well. Also, again, Phantom Knights makes another appearance, and you can see just how standard this deck list has become. At least the monster lineup, and then again the spell trap lineup. You just alter the ratios a little bit of what you need, but become a very standardized deck list, I think. Next up, we have Buster Blader in 14th place. Buster Blader also doing very well in this event. It's been doing pretty well in the metagame as of late. It has several good matchups. A huge thing for this deck is this spell card. Being able to banish cards from your opponent's graveyard is incredibly powerful. It destroys Magnet Warriors. It destroys Tower Knights. I was playing with Tower Knights against this deck, and oh my gosh, it's so frustrating having all your monsters getting removed from your graveyard with that thing. And they can just keep adding it back to hand, and just basically an endless DD Crow against your deck. So in certain matchups, it is extremely devastating to have. Yeah, this deck is a lot of fun to play with. Buster Blader, I think, are going to remain a part of the metagame for a little while going forward, because yeah, whenever they can get, and especially if they can get their Synchro and Fusion monster out at the same time, they just lock out your monster's board to be able to do anything, and it can be very difficult to get by. So yeah, I expect Buster Blader to be a Metaforce or an anti-Metaforce going forward for sure. Next up, Yosenju. Yosenju, one of those decks still hanging around here in the metagame. It's still got some nice tricks up its sleeve with the trap card, being able to just bounce back multiple opponents' monsters. Can be absolutely devastating. Hand traps help keep them alive in their game. OEM can also be frustrating for certain decks to deal with. They still have the consistency with 3 tanky in their deck. And the ability to go into other cards they want to. If they want to run MST or Chow, as we see here, they can run Drowning Merciful Force if they want to. They have a wide arsenal as well that they can dig into to assist themselves, but choosing to go with a lot of anti-back row in this particular build here. This was the highest performing Yosenju deck. I think it was the only Yosenju deck here in the top 100 we saw this weekend, but yeah, Yosenju still has the ability to get it done, despite the fact that, just the one showing here. Alright, next up we have Evil Eye. We had a few of these in the top 100 as well. Evil Eye are one of those matchup decks I kind of feel like. Some decks just have a whole lot of trouble dealing with their board, with their monster when it can't be destroyed or can't be targeted, and it just becomes one of those those fortress monsters you just can't deal with, and some decks just cannot deal with that. Plus their ability to banish from the graveyard, also extremely devastating. Like we mentioned earlier what Buster Blader can do. It's the same thing here with this deck. Anytime you have a in-house, in-archetype engine, banish from your opponent's graveyard effect, it's extremely powerful, and in this metagame right now, that is definitely the case with Magnet Warriors and other decks and Phantom Knights running around the way that they are. Next up, Harpy Ladies. Despite having, 9 of the top 100 spots, Harpy Ladies, the top performing deck here, was in 29th place, and I've seen most that's been reported as of so far. Nonetheless, the Harpy Ladies are still a great deck in the metagame right now. We see another main deck, Shadow Imprisoning Mirror here. It shows you just how powerful Phantom Knights really were in this event. But Harpy Ladies, yeah, they still have some versatility to them. You have multiple skills you can utilize. The Harpy's Hunting Ground. Also have Harpy's Last Will, and some people still playing Mind Scan. We can also go with either the 20 card variant like we do here to try to maximize consistency, or go for the 30 card variant to try to win those longer games with the Hysteric Sign and the discard traps. Kind of just depends what way you go with. I think they're both really good, and it just kind of depends on the metagame. We'll see going forward which variant people decide to go with. I think there was a bit of a split from what I saw in the KC Cup, but going forward we'll see which variant takes over for the meantime. But again, it's always just sort of back and forth with what version of the deck is popular at the moment. But Harpy Ladies, still one of the best decks. Alright, next up we have Dark Magician in 30th place, the only Dark Magician deck here in the top 100 for the KC Cup. I think this is probably the way to go with the deck if you're not going to go with the hero version. I know you could also go with the Star Seraph version, but 3 of the Apprentice Illusion Magician, also running the some extra back rows of cards in here. A lot of back row, 2 Drowning, 1 Canadia, in addition to 3 Book of Moon. So really going heavy on the protection here and trying to completely wipe our opponent's board with that Drowning. But yeah, Dark Magician gained that consistency from having the Apprentice Illusion Magician, and it's enough to give him at least one spot here in the top 100. I also noticed the one Rhinoceros here as well. It is possible to go into a rank 6 into this off of the Apprentice Illusion Magician, especially summoning them from the deck off of the navigation. So I'm gonna have to put this deck together and try it out in a video at some point. Next up we have Lunalights. Lunalights took a couple spots here in the top 100. Arcus, the Lightsworn monster. We've seen more and more people doing this with Lunalights lately. You can search this out with Tanky, discard it with the Soul Recharge, draw 2, mill 2. It helps fill your graveyard up with your Lunalight monsters so you can get their effects off. Also, you obviously continue to filter through your deck and draw on the cards you might need for various things. So Lunalights doing really well here. Managed to secure a few spots, and just another one of those decks where if you can draw Saber Dancer against some decks that just don't have an answer for it, it can be just GG just by playing that one card alone. Next up we have a Waterxyz Mermail deck. So I mean, the core strategy of this deck with Deep Sea Diva and the what do you call it, the heavy infantry is still there, but instead of playing a whole bunch of backer cards to back it up, we're just gonna be throwing down extra threats here. We have the King of the Swamp to help search our deck for the polymerization, the infusion for a Mud Dragon. The Mermail monsters can help us put extra level 4 waters on the boards, or water monster on the board, and then we can activate our skill to make them level 4, an XYZ summon. Really cool. I always love to see Mermails be mixing with Water XYZ, and this is a really interesting idea to use the King of the Swamp into polymerization to go into Mud Dragon with it, which is another level 4. So definitely have to look into this deck more and give it a shot, because I always love seeing these Mermail Water XYZ decks. Next up we have Melodious, one spot here in the top 100, and it was the larger 30 card deck here. Melodious, one of those decks where they've kind of fallen off a little bit from where they were a couple months ago when they were kind of the best deck. But at this point though, they're still not bad though. They can still win most matchups. A lot of decks though have outs or ways to get rid of their boss monster Bloom Diva, but even so, you know, despite that, they still have like so many different tools in their arsenal they can dig into. They still have so many little tricky gimmicky plays between their fusion monster and their hand trap. They can definitely still win games, and of course they have their monster which can banish from the graveyard, which is obviously really powerful against, you know, Phantom Knights and other decks like that. So as long as they still have those tools in their arsenal, Melodious is still going to be one of those decks to hang around in the metagame. But they've certainly fallen off from where they were a few months back. Next up, Gaia. This is a deck that I kind of feel like underperformed in this event a little bit. Gaia, highest spot was 59th, and only one in the top 100 that we've seen so far. This is a deck that had benefited a lot from Monster Reborn and BLS being added into the game, giving them a lot of extra reach, being able to close out games easier with those two cards. We see this deck not even running the Monster Reborn. Instead, we see 3 copies of Skullmeister in here, choosing to go with that instead of the additional copies of the Hand Trap, or instead of the Pendulum Monster Archfiend Eccentric. Skullmeister, really nice in this metagame. Kind of like DD Crow, able to deal with your opponent's graveyard effects, so I can definitely see why it was effective. But just definitely interesting to see that Gaia, this was the highest performing deck that we got from them in this event. Next up, we had a Goki deck here in 64th place, the Ties That Bind. Goki, Necro Valley in the main deck. Oh man, that Necro Valley in the main deck. That'll definitely win you a lot of games when you're up against like Phantom Knights and other things like that. You can just completely shut them down from being able to do any of their core strategies with that card. Goki, one of those decks that just acts as a really nice anti-meta deck. Glad to see someone still managing to make it into the top cut with this deck though. Yeah. Man, Necro Valley in this event would definitely be powerful if your deck has access to it in the main deck. Kind of surprised we didn't see more Water XYZs or other things like that that can main deck Necro Valley, given how strong it is in some of these matchups. Noble Knights securing a spot here in the top 100. Noble Knights are one of those decks that have a lot of power. You just got to draw into the right hand with them, right? Ever since they lost that consistency skill, they just haven't been the same. But still, the entire arsenal of their cards actually in their deck hasn't really changed much. They're all still there. Storm's at 1 now, but their main arsenal is still there. This deck does have some good matchups. Does have some bad matchups though. Harpy Ladies being one of them, but it does beat Melodious, which isn't really much of a threat in the metagame anymore, though, right? But it does have a bad matchup against Harpy Ladies, so that's probably going to help hold Noble Knights down. I think as long as Harpy Ladies are a huge part of the metagame, Noble Knights are probably going to struggle a bit to keep up. Next up, we have Destiny Hero taking the 70th spot. Again, another deck that kind of underperformed. A little surprised D-Hero didn't do a bit better. I like this deck a lot. Really hoping it would do well, but Yeah, unfortunately 70th place is the best that it can manage here. Being able to search for MST right now is not the best. We talked earlier about how Cosmic Cyclone has kind of surpassed MST in a lot of matchups, and you'd rather have Cosmic. And in that environment, being able to search for MST as your deck sort of like big go-to play doesn't feel as good. Next up we have a Cyber Dragon deck, 71st place for this one. This was the best performing Sidra deck. You always see a Cyber Dragon deck here in the top 100 of KC Cup. It's one of those fast OTK decks. Not quite as fast as it used to be since all the nerfs to the decks, but with the new support that came out in the structure deck, it still has some punch to it and managed to secure a spot here in top 100 in the 71st place of the KC Cup. Next up, we have a Weather Painter deck. Surprised to see one of these up there. We just talked about how you want to use OTK decks. Weather Painter is the exact opposite. It's a deck that says, let's take as long as possible to get through our game. So, a little surprised to see Weather Painter up there, but this player used a couple different decks, so I don't know how much to use it on the final day or throughout. But nonetheless, so it still did well with it, and Weather Painter is still one of those decks that people just aren't expecting it. And if they don't have the tools or the outs for it, it can be a rough matchup. And I think in an environment like this in KC Cup, a lot of people probably were not expecting to see a Weather Painter deck. And then next up, we also have a Blue Eyes deck, the one and only Blue Eyes deck that was in the top 100. I talked in my top 5, like, what was it, budget decks, or I think it was top 5 budget decks for the KC Cup, about Blue Eyes being one of those high roll decks. If you draw really well and you're feeling lucky, go with Blue Eyes. If you can go with it. That wouldn't be my first pick, but you really need to get lucky when you're playing with this deck to be able to high roll into what you need and actually draw the cards you want to. But interesting here, not only is this the one deck to make the top 100, look at the card selection here. 3 Ancient Rules alongside 3 of the Dragon Spirit of Light, the Blue Eyes monster that banishes back row when it's summoned. We are going all out with the anti-back row removal, all out with the with the speed here of summoning monsters from hand. Yet by choosing to go with this route, we're not running the Melody of the Awakening Dragon, so we have the Azure Eyes in our extra deck for the powerful play that synchro play gives us. So really interesting list. I may have to try this one out because I do kind of like that idea. Because a lot of times when I'm playing as Blue Eyes, that monster that banishes your back row is a huge problem, and is a huge reason why they win a lot of games. So this is the last deck out of the ones we have here to showcase. Again, Phantomites did really well. Congratulations to everyone who got top 100 and who did well in the KC Cup. Appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps with the channel a lot. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of the day.